The movement of massive steel containers through physical ports is governed by high-speed data transfers in invisible servers. Every sovereign border operates under a permanent, irreconcilable tension. On one side, the mandate to maximize supply chain velocity. On the other, the mandate to protect the domestic community from threats and market distortion. The rules governing this tension are not generated locally. They are dictated by top-level international policy frameworks. Today, a physical shipping container cannot legally cross a border until its digital twin has successfully cleared a gauntlet of these global and national algorithms. We can map this gauntlet as a three-tiered architecture, the regulatory stack. It begins with the base layer of physical transport, rises through international safety treaties, and is capped by a highly restrictive layer of national algorithmic filters. When a logistics operator fails to navigate this stack, physical goods are detained indefinitely. Cash flow freezes and supply chains collapse. Understanding the modern macroeconomy requires analyzing these three invisible layers of logistics control. Before an asset ever interacts with a specific country's customs, it must satisfy a global layer of safety treaties. On the open ocean, the International Maritime Organization dictates the structural standards required to prevent catastrophic failures. Under the SOLAS Convention, shippers routinely misdeclared the weight of their cargo. This resulted in severely unstable vessels and massive container stack collapses. The regulatory correction is the Verified Gross Mass, or VGM, rule. The equation is strict. The tare mass of the container plus the mass of all cargo and dunnage equals the VGM. In the industry, the absolute operational reality is no VGM, no load. Shippers have two legal methods to obtain this data. They can run a fully packed container over a calibrated port weighbridge, or mathematically tally the individual pallet weights before loading. Calculating the weight mathematically is highly risky and explicitly banned for bulk commodities like iron ore or grain, where the margin for error is too high to guarantee vessel stability. Air cargo operates under a parallel security protocol governed by the International Civil Aviation Organization. Instead of relying on chaotic, decentralized airport inspections, regulatory authorities delegate security screening directly to privatized corporate entities. In Indonesia, this takes the form of the regulated agent and known consignor frameworks. Verified manufacturers can secure their cargo directly at the point of production, allowing their shipments to completely bypass standard airport X-rays. Securing regulated agent status requires an extreme financial barrier to entry, including a minimum capital expenditure of 25 billion rupiah. At the global lighter, physical safety is guaranteed by transferring massive liability and capital requirements directly onto private logistics firms. Once an asset satisfies these global treaties, it arrives at the sovereign border. At massive terminals like the port of Tanjung Priok, thousands of containers require immediate processing simultaneously. Historically, disjointed government ministries, trade, health, and customs demanded separate paper documents from the same stalled truck, causing massive physical gridlock and dwell times. The Indonesia National Single Window demolished these silos. It forces all interagency data through one centralized digital portal. The core brain dictating clearance velocity through this portal is the algorithmic profiling system known as Indonesia Single Risk Management. High-risk importers are routed to the red channel. This triggers mandatory physical inspections, detailed document reviews, and maximum dwell times. The yellow channel bypasses physical checks in favor of document scrutiny. However, these shipments are highly vulnerable to LARTASA's regulations. If a specific HS code is restricted, an alert immediately halts clearance. Highly compliant entities receive green channel or authorized economic operator status. Their cargo instantly bypasses physical checkpoints, accelerating straight through the matrix. The algorithm is unforgiving. If an importer misclassifies an HS code or under-invoices their goods, customs issues a NOTL penalty, and the system instantly downgrades their risk profile. Securing green channel status transforms regulatory compliance into a highly lucrative competitive moat. This standard customs logic faces severe strain from digital disruption, specifically the explosion of low-value cross-border e-commerce. Automated clearance algorithms were permitting millions of cheap retail parcels to flood the market, actively cannibalizing domestic small and medium enterprises. The government responded with PMK 96/2023. It operates as targeted algorithmic protectionism. Consumer items like bags, shoes, and textiles were stripped of their flat tariffs. Instead, they are now hit with maximum protective duties under the most favored nation rate. This regulation forces overseas e-commerce platforms to legally act as the official importer, shifting the burden of liability directly onto the tech giants. Governments also engineer asymmetric fiscal zones to pivot their economies toward high-value sectors, like the aerospace and advanced manufacturing targets set for the bottom region. The Batam Free Trade Zone is a primary example. Legally, this island sits entirely outside the normal Indonesian customs and tax area. This created a severe tax arbitrage loophole. Opportunistic importers used Batam as a tax-free transit hub to smuggle cheap consumer goods into Jakarta. The data revealed a massive anomaly. Over 77% of all imported parcels in Indonesia were originating from this single small island. The government closed this loophole through hyper-integration, starting with the elimination of fragmented administrative documents. A new single-document system demands exact synchronization. Custom servers cross-match manifest files directly with the tax directorate within a strict 7-day window to generate a valid tax exemption. Local authorities simultaneously enforce the RPBK quota system, physically limiting the raw volume of consumer goods allowed onto the island. Asymmetric tax-free zones can only survive if they are policed by hyper-integrated interagency digital surveillance networks. A single asset must navigate this entire architecture. It clears the global treaty layer, satisfies the national single-window algorithms, and only then triggers a physical truck to move at the base layer. International logistics relies entirely on the precise synchronization of data across sovereign boundaries. Regulatory compliance functions as the underlying physical infrastructure of trade itself. Failing to master HS codes, algorithms, and asymmetric policies guarantees severe financial losses through extended dwell times and heavy penalties. For the leaders of international trade, mastering this regulatory stack is the most powerful lever for maximizing global supply chain profitability.